Shalom, shalom, everybody. This is Mitch. Hope y'all are well. So the reason I'm going to be driving here in a minute, so if it gets dark, that's why it's dark out, just got off work. So that being said, I just wanted to get on here today and make a video. That's a bad sound. Make a video about, and basically just give some commentary on the video call that happened on Thanksgiving Day with the brethren. Now, what happened at this call is I had presented to the brethren, basically I presented what I had discovered and what the Father had shown me regarding the apostle, or so-called apostle Paul, or Saul of Tarsus. Now, the Father showed me how contradictory he was in his words and his teachings of both himself and both. Not only did he contradict himself, but he also contradicted YaHuWaH, he contradicted the Father, and he contradicted the true apostles. I say true apostles because he ain't a real apostle. So one of the things I wanted to bring up about this call right away was the fact that when I had started the call, so back up, I'll back up real quick. So before we had the call, the brethren got on the call, I made a video basically making a case for, both the scripture and, just reason, making a case for why I had come to believe that Paul was a false apostle. And so I had made this video, and I had made it in response to Frank's video, because he had made a video. In it, he talked about how Shaul, or Paul, was the 12th apostle, how he was the actual 12th apostle who took the spot of Judas, and this was one of my main disagreements with his video teaching, was that he taught that Paul was the 12th apostle, who basically was in the office of the apostle, who basically took Judas's spot. We know that from Acts 1 that they chose Matthias to fill Judas's spot. They had cast lots. Well, first of all, in Acts chapter 1, they tell us what the actual requirement to take Judas's spot is, to be one of the 12. And that was that they had to have been witness to Yahushua's baptism to his resurrection. So the resurrection was the important part, but they also had to witness basically his entire earthly ministry. They had to be one of the 12, they had to have followed him and learned from him during his earthly ministry to be one of the 12. That's expressly, stated, like I said, in Acts chapter 1. There's also, I want to say in Matthew, I could be wrong, I'm not 100% sure where this is, but Yahushua says, "And ye that have followed me," he said, "ye that have followed me," meaning who had actually followed him in person. He said, and he was talking to his apostles, he said, "You shall sit on, in the regeneration, you shall sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of YaHuWaH." So he said, "Ye who have followed me." Well, Paul didn't follow Yahushua during his earthly ministry. Paul was a Pharisee. It's more likely that Yahushua would have rebuked Paul than made him an apostle, because we know what Yahushua said about the Pharisees. Called them vipers, children of hell. He said, "Beware the leaven of the Pharisees." So, sorry, I was going to say something there, lost my train of thought. But I'll finish the point I was making, was that I had disputed what Frank had said in his teaching, which is basically, he said that Paul was the 12th apostle, he took Judas' spot. I disputed that. And in my video, the video that I did before the call that I sent to the brethren, and basically, there was a few other things in the video that I pointed out too, but this was the main thing, and this is the main reason why I'm making this video now, is because once we got on the call, I had basically started making the case, for my position about Paul, and I didn't know how many people had watched my video, the one that I had made prior to the call. I had pretty much assumed probably not many people, because I understand that the notion of Paul being a false apostle is not too popular of an idea. Really not a popular idea, and I get it. People they love Paul, they love his words. People quote Paul more than they quote the Messiah, and I think that's backwards and messed up and wrong. But that's how it is. People quote Paul more than Mashiach. People put Paul's words above Mashiach's, and when they contradict, they defend Paul. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I can't wrap my head around it. But to finish what I was saying, I keep going. I don't know if Mike just wasn't paying attention for the beginning of the call or what. Mike from Followers of the Way. But it was pretty cool because YaHuWaH totally vindicated me. And I know that, see, when you're standing on the side of truth, when you're standing for YaHuWaH and his truth, guess what? You don't need to fight your battles. You don't need to defend yourself, because YaHuWaH will vindicate you. When you're on the side of truth and when you're defending his word and his truth, he will vindicate you. So, like I had said, everyone had kind of been arguing with me for a little while, saying, basically trying to argue against the point that I had made about Paul not being the 12th apostle because he didn't witness or follow YaHuWaH. He didn't witness his earthly ministry. He didn't follow YaHuWaH. So he certainly didn't witness his resurrection. So, I had made that point, and about 3/4 of the way through the call, Mike gets on and he starts talking, and Mike proceeds to explain and make the very same point that I had made in my video and at the beginning of the call. Pretty much laid it out exactly the same way I did. Said, no, actually Paul wasn't in that office of apostle, the 12th apostle, because he didn't witness the baptism, the resurrection. And so he basically set the record straight. And funny enough, no one really said anything about it after that. I sure didn't. Of course, while he was saying it, I was like, oh, this is exactly what I was saying. This is the exact point I made. And so I didn't say anything about it while the call was still going and being recorded. I just let it go. And then at the end of the call, after it was over, there was a few of us, the brothers left, still hanging out on Skype. And I had decided to ask. It was like me, Rob, Frank, Tyler, and I think it was Taiwo. It was just a few of us left on the call. And I decided to bring it up, and just be like, hey, so did anyone notice how Mike pretty much made the exact same point that I did about Paul not being the 12th apostle? And it was radio silence. There was no response. I looked over at Frank and his screen, and he didn't have anything to say. His head was down. And that's when I saw. It was a big light bulb moment for me, because that's when I realized that that his heart had hardened. Because here, and this is how YaHuWaH vindicated me, is because here is I'm making the case against Paul. I'm making the case against Paul to the brethren, and one of the very first points I make, which was actually originally a dispute in Frank's video, the very same point that I made, that they had fought me on, and it basically belittled me and said, well, you don't have understanding, and that's basically what more or less, they basically said, well, you don't have the YaHuWaH, or you're carnally minded, that's why you don't get it, and all this, and which I thought was funny, because obviously, up until this point, YaHuWaH had revealed his son's name to me, and opened up my understanding of the scriptures, and all these things. So none of the brothers had ever once said anything like that to me at all, that I didn't have the YaHuWaH, or I was carnally minded, or anything like that. We pretty much always all agreed. And then here comes, all of a sudden, I come to dispute Paul and bring this examination of Paul. And now, like I said, everyone's like, oh, you're not understanding. It's a lack of understanding. That's the issue. You're carnally minded. All this. And I'm like, wow, all that happened really quick. Went from being the same YaHuWaH and all that to all of a sudden, because I questioned Paul, now I don't have the YaHuWaH. And but funny enough, like I said, YaHuWaH vindicated me, because Mike proceeded, like I said, to make the same exact point that I had made. And the great thing about that is that Mike is perhaps one of the most, if not the most respected brothers out of all the brethren in terms of scriptural knowledge, in terms of the understanding he has of the scriptures. And I won't take away anything from Mike in that regard. He knows his stuff, man. I respect him. I've learned a lot from him. But it was just so cool to hear him basically come out and just verify and confirm the whole point that I had been trying to make, and that everyone else had been fighting me on. So, like I said, Frank just, when I brought it up after the call, Frank didn't say anything. He just kept his head down. No one said anything. So, like I said, that's when I discovered, or that's when I really saw, with completely open eyes, I saw how, I saw that their hearts were hardened. And I knew in that moment that if Frank or the other brothers couldn't even concede or admit that I had been right about that, and it's not about me being right, I was just going off what the word says. It's the word that's the truth. So it's not about I was right. I was just going off what the word said, and everyone was fighting me on it until Mike said it straight, agreed with me, and then no one had anything to say. None of them said, man, sorry, Mitch, you were right, or wow, thanks for trying to correct me, and none of that. No, their hearts were hardened. And so I knew at that moment that if they couldn't even admit that they had been wrong and that I was right about the point I was making, if they couldn't even admit that on that small matter, on that very small matter, I knew that there was absolutely no way any of them were going to even consider the fact that I might be right about Paul. I mean, that's when I knew. I didn't really expect to see that kind of reaction and that cold, cold-heartedness, that hardened heart. I did not expect to see that from, my brothers and sisters. It's the last thing I expected to see. Last people I expected to, be unwilling to admit that they were wrong or take correction. And so here's my point. If you are operating in the Ruach HaKodesh, and someone, like say you release a teaching, and someone, one of your brothers, makes a response video and says, points out, hey, these are the issues of your teaching, not in a malicious way, but in just a way of saying, hey, this is what the word says, and it's not quite in agreement with what you were saying. So you might want to, check yourself, bro. That's what we do in love. We correct each other. It's not an ego thing. It's not a battle of wits or minds or anything like that. It's not a competition. We're not in competition with each other. So I truly can't understand why they couldn't just admit it that they were wrong. But nevertheless, they couldn't. They couldn't admit it. So, like I was saying, if you're operating in the Ruach HaKodesh, if a brother comes to you and with a correction, and then even a very respected brother comes and basically agrees with that brother that tried to correct you, and basically sets it straight and says, no, you know what, you were wrong. This brother was right. He was correcting you. He was giving you the truth. And then you're just like, you can't admit that you were wrong, or say like, hey bro, thanks bro for trying to correct me in love. None of that. Like I said, hardened hearts. It was sad. It was really sad to see that. It was really sad. But I'm just gonna say one more thing, and that's just that, I'm gonna be releasing some videos. I'm putting together some videos about Paul, and I'm gonna put together some videos that detail and break down all of Paul's contradictions with Scripture, not only with Scripture, but with of all his words that contradict YaHuWaH, that contradict YaHuWaH and his law and his prophets, and also the true apostles. So that's kind of what happened. Like I said, it really bums me out, but it's plain to me that they're not not operating the Ruach, because I gave them the truth. At least they can admit, because they're one of their own, brothers who they respect a lot more than they respect me. Even he confirmed what I was saying. So it's crazy, man. It blows me away. I don't know. Like the Ruach, if you got the Ruach and someone corrects you and you're wrong and you see it and you realize it, you're gonna apologize. You're gonna say, you know what, you're right, man. I was wrong. I'm sorry. You're gonna say thank you for correcting me in love. You're gonna say, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you did. And there was none of that. There was none of that. So it's sad to me that being right basically in that situation took precedence over, or rather not being right, but rather not admitting that you're wrong once it's been undoubtedly proven. If you can't, I don't know, if you can't do that, then I'm sorry, but you're not operating in the Ruach. It's just unfortunate, because I love these brothers. They are my brothers. And it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough, because unfortunately I can't go back. I can't go back to seeing Paul as an apostle. I can't. I've seen too much. The Father showed me so much, and He keeps showing me more. So I can't go back. I can't just pretend that Paul is, an apostle, because he's not. And I brought this to the brothers with love, and I knew going into it that it wasn't going to be well received. But I didn't care, because YaHuWaH showed me what He did about Paul, and I can't just not share it. You know what I mean? I gotta share the truth. That's why I was here. That's why I'm here, is to share the truth. Regardless, despite what anyone has to say about it, despite how much people hate me for it, I don't care. I'm here to speak the truth. That's my job, and I'm gonna do it. Whether you like it or not, whether it, upsets your, Christian doctrine. Here's the thing, and this is a question. This is a legitimate question to the brothers, who are watching this. This is a real question. Why is it, if Paul is a true apostle and he speaks the words of truth with no lie, if he doesn't lie and if he just speaks the words of truth, why? By the way, I'm not saying that he never said anything true. That's not what I'm saying. He said a lot of things that were true, but he mixed in lies. And what did YaHuWaH say? A little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. So you can teach 99% truth, but you got 1% lie. That's going to leaven the whole lump. So people, especially in Christianity, they love They love Paul. They follow Paul. They follow him and quote him more times than they quote the Messiah, the one they call Jesus. You know, it's crazy. Like, it's not Christianity. It's Paulianity. That's what it is. So my question is this. We know that Christianity, this is for the brothers. We know Christianity is not the narrow way. We know it's the broad path that leads to destruction. So if we know that to be true, then explain to me, if Paul is a true sent one by YaHuWaH, then why is it that Christians in Babylon so readily and freely love and accept and also, you know, proliferate, or maybe that's not the right word, but, you know, spread his gospel? Yes, Paul said my gospel. It's his gospel. It's not the Messiah's. It's not YaHuWaH's gospel. It's Paul's gospel. Why is it that so many Christians all over the world accept the teachings of Paul? We know that the world cannot receive the truth. So why are so many people receiving and accepting Paul in the world? It's something to think about. But I'm going to be making some videos here coming out, and I'm going to break down in depth the contradictions that Paul has with the rest of Scripture, because there are plenty of them, and I'm going to show you guys that Paul is actually the very same man of lawlessness who he spoke about, or wrote about, I should say. He's the man of lawlessness. And if you don't think that's true, well, this is the very same man who said, all things are lawful unto me. All things are lawful unto me. That's Paul. All things, huh? Wow. Wow. Really, Paul? All things, huh? Wow. That's, you know, I said this on the call, but it reminds me of Aleister Crowley, who called himself the Great Beast 666, started a religion called Thelema, which the whole idea of it is, the slogan basically for Thelema is, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. That's essentially, I mean, it's not far off from what Paul said when he said, all things are lawful unto me. You know, it's crazy. Who else in the Bible says that? I mean, show me one other person in the Scriptures that says, all things are lawful unto me. No one. YaHuWaH didn't even say that. I mean, come on, people. I know this delusion is strong, but y'all gotta wake up. Paul is a deceiver. He was the enemy that sowed tares. Read that parable. Paul is the enemy who sowed tares. Read that parable. You know, but I leave you guys with that. I just want to get on here and just kind of release some of my thoughts on the matter. You know, just kind of explain, you know, where I'm at. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm gonna, you know, probably won't be walking with the brethren anymore, which really makes me sad. But, you know, I've already lost, you know, a wife and, you know, basically lost my children. I don't see them very often anymore. I lost that. I lost my marriage and seeing my kids. I lost that for YaHuWaH. So what makes you think that I won't walk away from anyone else who doesn't want to hear the truth? If I didn't even cave for my wife, what makes you think that I'm going to cave anyone? I'm going to follow the truth. I'm going to speak the truth, no matter what it costs me, no matter what anyone says, no matter if I'm alone and destitute and have no one. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I'm hated by everyone in the entire world. I don't care. I was put here to speak truth. And what the Father's showing me, I have to speak it. I have to share it. I have no choice. I mean, I do have a choice, and that I've made that choice. That is to obey, to speak the truth, no matter the cost. So, I'm sorry, but no one's going to stop me from speaking the truth. I know who Paul is, and he's going to be exposed, and he will be taken out of the way, the man of lawlessness, who they call YaHuWaH Paul. Shalom, shalom.